The Himalayas stand as a brutal test of human endurance, towering peaks, oxygen-starved air, and freezing temperatures that push even the strongest to their limits. And yet, the people who call this place home aren't just surviving, they're thriving. While outsiders struggle for breath at extreme altitudes, Tibetans and Sherpas move with effortless grace, carrying heavy loads, climbing impossible heights, and enduring conditions that would cripple most humans. What makes them different? Is it just adaptation, or is there something far more extraordinary hidden in their biology? For decades, mountaineers and scientists alike have marveled at the superhuman endurance of these high-altitude dwellers. Western climbers require oxygen tanks just to function at elevations above 8,000 meters. Yet Sherpas ascend the world's highest peaks without any artificial help. Their lungs work as if they were at sea level, their hearts beat without strain, and their muscles don't seem to fatigue. It defies everything we know about human limitations. But as researchers dug deeper, they uncovered shocking truth. Tibetans and Sherpas aren't just physically conditioned for high altitudes. Their very DNA has been reprogrammed by evolution, sculpted by forces that most of the world has never encountered. Unlike lowlanders, whose bodies panic at high elevations, desperately producing more red blood cells to compensate for the lack of oxygen, Tibetans have a completely different response. Instead of thickening their blood to dangerous levels, their bodies have a built-in regulator that keeps oxygen levels stable without overloading their system. This is not a skill learned through training. It is a biological gift, an inherited advantage that sets them apart from the rest of humanity. But the real mystery isn't just how they survive. It's why their bodies function so differently in the first place. The answer lies in a genetic inheritance from an ancestor long thought to be extinct. Thousands of years ago, deep in the icy caves of Siberia, scientists discovered something that would rewrite human history. Fragments of a long-lost species, neither fully human nor entirely unknown. The Denisovans, their bones, barely preserved in time, held a secret hidden for millennia. DNA unlike anything seen before. And that DNA, against all odds, had survived. Not in textbooks, not in fossils, but in the blood of an entire population that never even knew they carried it. Tibetans and Sherpas possess a gift no other humans do, an inheritance from a species that vanished tens of thousands of years ago. Unlike the Neanderthals, whose traces are scattered across many human populations, the Denisovans left behind something far more powerful, an evolutionary shortcut to surviving in the world's harshest environments. A single gene, passed down through generations, now defines the ability of these high-altitude dwellers to breathe where others suffocate, to endure where others collapse. That gene is EPAS1, and it does something remarkable. Most people, when exposed to low oxygen, experience a dangerous chain reaction. The body panics, overproduces red blood cells, thickens the blood, and strains the heart. It's a survival mechanism, but one that comes at a cost. It can lead to strokes, heart failure, and a slow, suffocating death known as chronic mountain sickness. But Tibetans? They bypass this entirely. The EPAS1 gene acts like a hidden switch, controlling oxygen levels with precision no other human population possesses. Their blood remains light, their hearts unburdened, their bodies adapted in ways that defy normal evolutionary timelines. But this genetic miracle didn't happen over tens of thousands of years, as evolution typically demands. Scientists believe that the EPAS1 gene spread through the Tibetan population at an unprecedented speed, within just 3,000 years. To put that into perspective, that's less time than it took for humans to transition from ancient pyramids to modern skyscrapers. Evolution, in this case, didn't play by the rules. The Tibetans didn't gradually adapt to high altitudes. Instead, they inherited a fully functional survival mechanism from a species that had already mastered life in extreme environments. What makes this even more astonishing is that the Denisovans themselves remain a mystery. Unlike Neanderthals, whose remains have been found across Europe and Asia, Denisovans left behind almost no trace except their DNA. No complete skulls, no known civilizations, just fragments of existence buried in genetic codes. Yet, their impact on modern humans is undeniable. Without them, the Tibetan Plateau might have remained uninhabitable, a region too extreme for human survival. This is more than just a story about adaptation. It's a story about genetic inheritance on a scale never seen before. A lost branch of humanity, extinct in every way but one, continues to shape the fate of an entire people. And the most mind-blowing part? We're only just beginning to understand what other secrets Denisovan DNA might be hiding. At high altitudes, where oxygen is scarce, every breath is a battle. For most people, even the simplest movements, walking, lifting, even breathing, feel like an impossible task. But Tibetans and Sherpas move effortlessly, their bodies working as if the thin air isn't even a challenge. Their secret? It isn't just training or resilience. It's biology, an oxygen mastery that no other human population possesses. Most people assume that surviving in low-oxygen environments is just a matter of willpower, that if you train hard enough, push yourself long enough, your body will adapt. But that's not how high-altitude physiology works. In reality, the human body struggles to function without enough oxygen. The brain slows, the muscles weaken, and the heart strains under the pressure. Lowlanders who ascend too quickly to extreme elevations face dizziness, nausea, confusion. Some even die from a condition known as high-altitude pulmonary edema, where fluid floods the lungs, making each breath heavier until the body simply shuts down. But Tibetans? They don't suffer from this. Their blood doesn't thicken dangerously, their hearts don't overwork, and their lungs extract oxygen with remarkable efficiency. Scientists discovered that their advantage lies in a unique genetic adaptation, one that stops the body from overreacting to oxygen deprivation. While most people at high altitudes produce excessive red blood cells, leading to thick, sluggish blood, Tibetans maintain a perfect balance. Their bodies extract just enough oxygen without pushing their cardiovascular system to the brink. One of the biggest reasons for this is a mutation in the EGLN1 gene, which fine-tunes how their bodies respond to low oxygen. In lowlanders, high altitude triggers a rush of signals that tell the body to flood the bloodstream with red blood cells. But in Tibetans, EGLN1 prevents this dangerous overcompensation, keeping their oxygen regulation smooth and controlled. The result? They can live, work, and even reproduce at extreme elevations without suffering the health risks that plague outsiders. But their mastery of oxygen doesn't stop there. Scientists found another fascinating detail. Tibetans have naturally higher levels of nitric oxide in their blood. This might not sound like much, but it's a game changer. Nitric oxide widens blood vessels, allowing oxygen to travel more freely through the body. This means that even in an environment where oxygen is scarce, their cells receive a steady supply, ensuring that their muscles don't weaken, their organs don't struggle, and their endurance remains unmatched. And while Tibetans are incredibly efficient at processing oxygen, Sherpas take it to another level. Studies show that Sherpas have even lower hemoglobin levels than Tibetans, yet they outperform almost everyone when it comes to extreme altitude endurance. Their bodies have evolved to make every breath count, conserving oxygen, distributing it more efficiently, and allowing them to perform at levels that seem impossible to outsiders. This is why they dominate in high-altitude mountaineering, guiding climbers up Everest while carrying enormous loads, all without needing supplemental oxygen. For most of human history, the idea of thriving in such an environment seemed impossible. But the Himalayan highlanders have rewritten the rules of what the human body is capable of. Their biology isn't just an adaptation, it's a precision-engineered survival system, sculpted over generations to make them masters of the thin air. Energy is survival. In the deathly cold of the Himalayas, where oxygen is thin and temperatures plummet below freezing, every calorie counts. But what if the body itself could decide how to burn energy more efficiently, prioritizing survival over everything else? That's exactly what Tibetan and Sherpa physiology does. Their metabolism isn't just different, it's engineered for endurance in ways that defy normal human biology. Unlike most people, who primarily rely on fat as an energy source, high-altitude natives burn more glucose instead. This might seem like a small detail, but it's actually one of their biggest survival advantages. The reason? Breaking down glucose requires far less oxygen than burning fat. In a place where oxygen is a luxury, this metabolic shift ensures that every movement, every breath, and every heartbeat uses energy as efficiently as possible. Scientists traced this extraordinary ability back to a mutation in the PARA gene, which regulates how the body processes fuel. In lowlanders, this gene encourages fat metabolism, storing energy for long-term use. But in Tibetans, the mutation pushes their bodies to favor carbohydrates, giving them a rapid, oxygen-efficient energy source perfectly suited for extreme altitudes. This isn't just about survival, it's about endurance. While others struggle to maintain stamina, their muscles keep going, fueled by a system that's evolved to keep them moving in the harshest conditions. But metabolism isn't just about fuel, it's also about heat. At high altitudes, extreme cold is just as much of a threat as low oxygen. Most people rely on shivering or extra fat to stay warm, but Tibetans and Sherpas maintain stable body temperatures with far less effort. Their secret? A hyper-efficient thermogenic system that helps them generate internal heat without exhausting their energy reserves. Scientists believe this is linked to their mitochondrial function, the tiny power plants inside cells that control energy production. Studies suggest that their mitochondria are fine-tuned for high-altitude efficiency, allowing them to generate more heat while using less oxygen. Even their muscle composition is different. High-altitude natives have a unique balance of slow-twitch and fast-twitch muscle fibers, which allows them to sustain long periods of physical exertion without tiring quickly. This gives them an advantage in everything from carrying heavy loads across mountain passes to performing at elite levels in endurance sports. All of these adaptations work together in a perfect system: oxygen-efficient fuel use, heat retention, and optimized muscle function, giving Tibetan and Sherpa people an almost superhuman ability to survive and thrive where others struggle. This isn't just adaptation. It's an evolutionary masterpiece, sculpted by nature to conquer the impossible. At high altitudes, survival isn't just about breathing. It's about staying alive in a world where nature is relentless. For most people, the mountains are a place of danger. Thin air, extreme cold, and unpredictable weather can turn a simple journey into a life-threatening struggle. But for the Himalayan highlanders, these dangers don't just exist, they've been conquered. What makes their bodies immune to conditions that leave others gasping for breath and struggling to survive? The answer lies in a level of resilience that scientists are only beginning to understand. One of the deadliest threats at high elevations is chronic mountain sickness, CMS, a condition that strikes outsiders who stay too long in oxygen-starved environments. The body, desperate for more oxygen, produces an excess of red blood cells, thickening the blood until the heart can no longer pump it effectively. The result? Debilitating weakness, organ damage, even death. But Tibetans don't experience this. Their bodies have evolved a natural safeguard against CMS, ensuring that their oxygen levels remain balanced without the dangerous overproduction of red blood cells. This is a trait no other high-altitude population on Earth possesses. Then there's high-altitude pulmonary edema, HAPE, a silent killer that floods the lungs with fluid, making every breath heavier until the victim drowns from the inside. It's one of the greatest risks for mountaineers and travelers ascending too quickly. But Sherpas and Tibetans have a built-in defense. Their blood vessels expand instead of constricting, preventing fluid buildup in the lungs and allowing them to function normally even at extreme altitudes. Scientists believe this resistance is linked to their increased production of nitric oxide, which keeps blood flowing smoothly where it would otherwise become restricted. But the most fascinating adaptation doesn't just affect adults, it begins before birth. Pregnancy at high altitudes is a serious risk. In lowlanders, oxygen deprivation leads to low birth weights, developmental delays, and even pregnancy complications, like preeclampsia. Yet, Tibetan women give birth to significantly healthier, heavier babies than any other population living at similar altitudes. Their placentas function differently, enhancing oxygen transfer to the fetus and ensuring proper growth even in an environment where oxygen is severely limited. These adaptations aren't just about avoiding disease. They are about thriving in conditions that should be impossible for human survival. While lowlanders struggle with altitude sickness, fluid-filled lungs, and pregnancy complications, Himalayan highlanders move through life as if these challenges don't even exist. Their bodies have been sculpted by evolution to withstand extremes, proving that in the harshest environments, the strongest don't just survive, They redefine what it means to be human. For centuries, humans have pushed their limits, searching for ways to survive in the most extreme environments on Earth. But what if the secret to endurance, adaptation, and even survival beyond our planet has already been discovered? Hidden in the DNA of people who have mastered life at high altitudes. The unique biology of Tibetans and Sherpas has fascinated scientists for decades, but now, their genetic adaptations might hold the key to something even bigger: the future of human evolution itself. In medicine, researchers are studying high-altitude genes to develop treatments for oxygen deprivation disorders. Patients suffering from hypoxia, a condition where oxygen supply to the body is dangerously low, often experience organ failure, brain damage, or even death. But Tibetans have already solved this problem through natural selection. Their ability to regulate oxygen without overwhelming their blood with red cells could lead to groundbreaking therapies for stroke victims, heart disease patients, and even premature babies who struggle to breathe at birth. Scientists are now investigating whether these genetic mechanisms could be used to develop new drugs or even gene therapies that could help millions of people worldwide. Beyond medicine, these adaptations could revolutionize extreme sports and high-altitude exploration. Imagine mountaineers, deep-sea divers, or endurance athletes with the ability to optimize oxygen the way Sherpas do. The advantage would be undeniable: longer endurance, faster recovery, and resistance to oxygen depletion that currently limits human performance. Some researchers even suggest that in the future, genetic engineering could allow lowlanders to inherit these traits artificially, creating a new generation of high-performance individuals equipped for extreme environments. But perhaps the most exciting possibility is space travel. In low-oxygen, high-radiation environments like Mars or the Moon, human survival is one of the greatest challenges. Could Tibetan DNA be the key to thriving in space? Their unique metabolism, oxygen efficiency, and resistance to harsh conditions mirror the exact challenges astronauts face. As scientists prepare for long-term space missions, they're looking at populations that have already adapted to extreme environments, not through technology, but through evolution itself. These discoveries are more than just scientific curiosity. They challenge our understanding of what it means to be human. Evolution has always been a slow process, taking thousands of years to shape new traits. But the Tibetan case shows that under the right conditions, adaptation can happen at lightning speed. It raises a powerful question: is human evolution still happening? And if so, what's next? The people of the Himalayas are living proof that the human body can adapt beyond what we once thought possible. Their biology is not just a relic of the past, it's a blueprint for the future. As we push further into uncharted territories, from the highest peaks to the depths of space, one thing is certain: the next frontier of human survival might not be about technology at all. It might be hidden in our own DNA, waiting to be unlocked.